People can be sometimes stuck in a vibration where all they're attracting is the toxic relationship. They're stuck in this financial rut. There's a reality out there that has everything that you want in life.
Parallel reality?
I believe they're parallel, but I believe they're vibration based. That is accessible to us via energy. Everything moving forward a second from now is malleable. You can be in the darkest situation in your entire life, and in a moment that could change. And you can be in the best situation in your entire life, and in a moment that can change. It's just vibrational realities. You're going back and forth. And then there are times when you're experiencing both because you have one foot in one reality and one foot in the other, and you're like, you can't seem to pick, and you're experiencing both at the same time. Here's a frequency for happiness. Here's a frequency for anxiety. They all have these ranges. Every single thought that we have produces energy. Emotions that we feel produce energy. When we take action or we're decisive about it, it produces energy.
What does the dynamic of wanting something do? What drew you to Colorado?
During the pandemic, we were living in Laguna Beach, my wife and I don't know, she got this like ping of like, had a dream one day of like, we're in this place where there's, chickens and there's land, and we have, we have clients that are there in a retreat center. Colorado had one of the places that had retreat centers. So for us, like, she got that dream within about a month and a half, found a retreat center, bought the retreat center, right? And then when we were signing it, it's when COVID hit and everything shut down. And I'm like, how lucky are we that we just avoided all of that stuff, like right before everything hit,
So
Yeah,
it sounds like your wife is also very in tune as well.
Yeah, I'm more on the energy healing stuff. She's more on the life coaching and neuroscience and like working with the mind and all that stuff. So
Wow, I love both of those things. Like, I'm very interested in spirituality. I like the science side of things too. So what a beautiful marriage.
honestly, she comes from that world. Like, she ran with a lot of back in the day, a lot of the folks that were like, working with just the government. They're like NASA, like, and a lot of scientists. So a lot of the things that, she's able to speak their language and quantify it. And I'm just like, wow, that's way too advanced for me. It's just like, it's a very different language. And I think some people's brains are wired to go really, really deep on the science. And my wife is a type where somebody can like kind of go really like hardcore on, here's this and that, and quantum physics and that. And then she goes like, here's a simple version for me to understand. And I'm like, I'll take that simple version, but she's like, yeah, she goes like, her mind is just fascinating. And for me, I'm like, I like it because I'm like, it's its own language. But when there's a translation, I'm like, that makes sense,
Well, she must understand it very well, because I love the saying that if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. So it sounds like she understands it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your energy work. I mean, being called the spiritual activator, I feel like, like, what are you activating?
Yeah. So to me, I mean, it's interesting, like, because my wife actually came up with that term, right? To me, when I first started out, it was more like healing. I was more of a big believer of like, we have these blocks that we have within us that have come from, whether or not, we've experienced like a traumatic, life event, or because of our environment, or sometimes it's just generationally passed down or gestational. We have these blocks to where we don't know why. We're just like, oh, wow, I just can't, worthiness issues, or I have problems with receiving love, or I have problems with abundance, or I have problems in stepping in my power, and all those different things. So for me, I started off with removal of those blocks, because I was more of like, I want to remove the things that don't serve me, right? And so I was in that realm for several years, and my wife, we were in Sedona actually, we were still dating. She was like, do you know everybody that's around you, right? Their gifts, their spiritual gifts just activate. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, and I was like a little oblivious. And she's like, this person, this person, this person. I'm like, okay. She's like, just watch. So just keep an eye on it. So I'm like, okay. So what ended up happening was that next few weeks, we've had guests that would come. Next thing they would have like deja vus or premonitions, or, they would be like, I have this feeling and this happened. And I'm like, and I've observed like one by one, I'm like, this is weird. Like something that I don't know that I'm doing, that I'm unconscious of, is helping people tap into what I believe they already have within, but it's hard for them to sometimes access it on demand or know that it's there. It's like super silently working. So when she saw that, she's like, you're a spiritual activator. So she actually coined that term, and that's one that I never heard of. I didn't know what to do with it. I was just like, this is kind of odd that this is happening. And that was the beginning of it. And it's people's gifts. And I believe we all have it. It's just like my mom, for example, ever since as a child, she would always have these dreams and they would come true every single time. And when I say, Mom, you're psychic, she would be like, oh no, that's evil. I'm not. Right. Because we grew up in a Catholic background. So the programming kind of like blocks her being able to own that.
Did you know scammers can literally steal your home right out from under you? The FBI calls it house stealing, and it's a growing real estate scam targeting American homeowners. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee, and file it with your local recorder's office. And just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they can take out loans using your equity as collateral or even sell the property behind your back. And you won't even know what's happening until you start getting collection or foreclosure notices. So let me ask you, when was the last time you checked your home title? Assuming the answer is never. And that's exactly what scammers are counting on. Their $1 million triple lock protection helps keep your home and equity safe. Here's what you get. Immediate 24/7 monitoring of your property, urgent alerts if there are any changes, and if fraud should happen, their US-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title at no additional cost. And here's the best part. Our podcast partner, Home Title Lock, will give you a free title history report so you can find out if you're already a victim and access your personal title expert, a $250 value just for signing up. Go to HometitleLock.com and use our promo code PRETTY250 or click on the link in the description. And make sure you check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code PRETTY250 to get the protection and peace of mind you deserve.
Yeah, I was in shock because to me, like my background isn't really the healing and spiritual activator. My background is entrepreneurship. For 20 years, I'm like serial entrepreneur, building businesses, selling them. Like to me, that's my first love, right? So to me, the healing and the spiritual activator to me was like, I don't know, it was kind of like by accident. I never dreamt about it. I never wanted to do it. To me, it was just like, I was just passionate about it because I just saw what energy did for my life. And then when
it gift though, because usually in the spiritual realm of people, usually a lot of them lack the business acumen to translate their gifts and their skills to actual monetization.
Yeah. So to me, it was very interesting. And I'm very like left brain spreadsheet, more of like skeptical, logical. So to me, it's like the energy thing is like, it really had to prove itself like, 10 times over for me to even be like, okay. So even though like I've been doing it for 20 years, I think that's a long process. I mean, people can do it faster, but for me, I was just like, I was a little stubborn with it,
Well, now you're going to have to tell me what 10 things happened to get you to go, okay.
To me, one of my earliest wounds I had to heal was abundance wounds. Right now, when I grew up, like I grew up in the Philippines, and we had it all. Dad's a businessman, and then we lost it all. So at a very young age, I experienced having it all, feeling the luxury of what life can be and that freedom. And then when it was pulled away, I was like, I also felt that, but I also saw how it affected my mom and I have 4 younger sisters, and I just like saw the look in their face, and I was just like, one day I'm gonna get it back, and I'm gonna make them proud, and I'm gonna provide for them, right? So that was a big motivating factor for me. I was like, it was just like healing that wound. So when I first got started with entrepreneurship, I remember I was stuck at a certain level, and I tried to game the system. I'm like, maybe it's a hack, maybe there's a book I can read, maybe there's some trick, maybe there's something that I can do to just blast through it. Maybe it's more hours, right?
The days are getting longer and spring is right around the corner. That means more outdoor activities, fresh energy, and a great time to refresh your wellness routine with a great tasting daily health drink. How does AG1 make it easy to support your body with one simple habit? Unlike other supplements that come and go, AG1 is a habit that actually sticks because you can feel the difference. I've noticed so many benefits since drinking AG1 over the past few years. AG1 can help support your digestion, your energy levels, your skin health from within, cravings, and so many more things. Have you noticed any of these? When it comes to my health, I want something I can trust, and that's why I choose AG1. With science-backed ingredients and real benefits I can feel, AG1 makes it easy to support overall wellness every day. And that's why I've been partnering with AG1 for so long. And AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs with your first box. So make sure you check out drinkag1.com/prettyintense and get this offer. That's drinkag1.com/prettyintense to start your new year on a healthier note.
I had a friend who's a psychic, and she was like, I have this really, really cool and powerful healer from Australia that's coming. He's going to be in Topanga Canyon in a few weeks. You should come see him. And I'm like, what's a healer? Like, I had no idea. This is before like secret or, chakras, like, all these meditation things became a thing. It was like very, very like, I think it was mid 2000s. Like it was pretty early. So I remember thinking to myself, why not? Right. So I go drive to Topanga Canyon. There's like the craziest rush hour traffic. I get in there and this octagon shaped house. I walked in and I'm like, I've never smelled sage before. I'm like, what is that smell? That's horrendous. It smells
I was going to say, it's not that great.
That's really, really foul. And then I started hearing this music and like, it was like chanting, it's playing in the background. I'm like, and this guy comes out wearing all white with mala beads. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is the cult that everyone's been talking about. Right. So I was just like super skeptical. So the guy sits me down and he's like, I'm going to do energy healing on you. Right. You just sit down here, like, just relax. Like, and I was like, sure. And so I'm sitting down there, and honestly, like, Danica, it was the most terrible hour of my life. Like, I couldn't see anything. I couldn't feel anything. My mind was racing. I was distracted. I was like brainstorming business stuff. I was thinking about food. I was hungry. Right. And I was just so negative the entire
Monkey
time.
brain.
Yeah. Monkey brain was there. I was so negative. I'm like, and I was like, let me give this a shot, whatever. So I was just quiet. And the next thing you know, I was like, I heard this whooshing sound, like, and I'm like, there you go. Maybe this guy's unlocking some psychic thing in me and I can finally hear something. And then I opened my eyes and it was just him like doing the sound effects with a
I was going to say there's a fan coming over around you.
And I'm like, oh man. So what ended up happening, long story short, like, he wrapped it up and he was like, you have abundance blocks in your heart, right? It was passed on by your dad. And that's why you're not able to attract abundance, because, and it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, abundance blocks, dad. And I'm like, I thought money is just about doing the thing, right? Learning the system and just doing the thing and just grinding at it, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't think anything of it. And he's like, in about 4 to 6 weeks, because I removed this, you should be able to attract a windfall of abundance. And I'm like, okay, yeah, right. Okay. And so I was like, I wrote the whole thing off. I thought it was just, I wrote it off to like at least I tried it out. And then 5 weeks later, this opportunity came out of nowhere. I wasn't prepared for it. And I made more in one day than an entire year. And that, to me, I was like, I don't know what this energy thing is, but I'm just going to go down the rabbit hole, because if this is what I can do in an area of life that I'm focused on, and it's not a stair step growth, it's like a boom, then probably everything that I ever met is growth. Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to explore this. So that's, for me, that started my session, and like, let me figure out what this energy thing is,
Now, what do you understand, like, from your perspective, what is actually happening?
So I think that, have you ever had this phenomenon to where you have a good day, just good things happen, and it's just all works out for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. And I also know
things also like that you could never align as well. Like, things fall into place, but also like, oh, they canceled, but then someone called and you're like, oh yeah, I'm available. And like things that you could never line up. And you're like, holy crap, my life is like, I couldn't have even planned this.
Exactly. To where it's like, you're not even orchestrating it, but it's just like orchestrated for you. And it's almost like you wake up and it's like, how can it get? It's like all these miracles or opportunities that you're like, what is going on, right? And then so I've noticed that it's a phenomenon like that, but I also noticed the flip side of when it rains, it pours. Is like, it's like one bad thing after another. And it's just like, you can't even make it up. The car breaks down, like, things get canceled, and like everything's just not working. So to me, when I realized that, I paid more attention to it, and it's vibration based. And I've noticed it to where, if you get the right vibration, right, you're experiencing the things that are available there, like a channel on the TV, right? You're in, and if you're in the wrong vibration, that's all you attract. And I put this to test in the last like 20 years, and it's dead on to where I've had it to where I've noticed, like, okay, me and my wife, like, we dip in vibration in the past. Next thing you know, 4 to 5 people who we only talk to once a year because they bring a lot of problems. You kind of like friends and family that you keep away because they're like, you can handle them in small doses or special occasions. They just show up, right? They all show up when you
They
dip
need
in vibration.
something, and then,
Something, they've got a problem, and I'm
yeah,
like, this is
drama.
drama. And then when we work on our vibration and we go up, they go away. So I've kind of seen this a lot in my life and other people's lives, where it's vibration based. And that's the same thing, to where people can be sometimes stuck in a vibration to where all they're attracting is the toxic relationship, or they're stuck in this financial, rut, and or physical pain. And that's all there is. I personally feel like it's vibration based. It's like there's multiple realities available to us. There's a reality out there that has everything that you want in life.
A parallel reality? You mean like a parallel reality?
I believe they're parallel, but I believe they're vibration based. And,
Oh, okay.
and it's not so much to where at any given moment right now, there's a version of me that's looking left, looking right. I'm a minute late. I'm saying something else, that there's different. And I think they've actually studied this. They've talked about this idea that there's multiple versions of reality. Like we live in that reality based universe. So my personal belief is that is accessible to us via energy, right? Via what we think, what we do determines what we experience. So to me, everything moving forward a second from now is malleable. It can be changed to where there's and I've seen it so many times to where not only for myself, for other people as well. And when it happens to them, their eyes get big and it clicks of like, you can be in the darkest situation in your entire life, right? And in a moment that could change. And you can be in the best situation in your entire life, and in a moment that can change. And to me, it's just vibrational realities. You're going back and forth between both. And then there are times when you're experiencing both. There's polarity because you have one foot in one reality and one foot in the other, and you're like, you can't seem to pick, and you're experiencing both at the same time.
I agree. And like I've heard of this too, where basically there's infinite amounts of Earths with us on it, that every moment or every decision splits off into another Earth with you, another timeline. And so you're saying basically you can kind of, it's at a frequency, and you can sort of tune into any one of these sort of potential realities that you could have. I also find that there's just tremendous power in perception and what you decide to put your focus on. And I wonder what you think that role is and how powerful that is versus orienting your energy to align with a different reality. The actual perception going, it's the same planet, but I see, oh wow, I'm so glad that it's cloudy because we're going to get rain for the plants. Like today's a beautiful day versus it's cloudy.
Yeah, I think perception plays a huge part in it, because to me, I think everything produces energy, and they've actually measured this. Like, there's machines out there, biofeedback machines, and we own one of them. To
Oh,
where,
really?
yeah, because we went to Norway, and my wife was studied in Norway, and they had all these machines, and of course, only like 5% of them are allowed in the U.S. because they work so well back there, right? So what the machine does is it can tell you, like, when a trauma was, so let's say you have a trauma, it can tell you what age it was formed, right? And when it was created, right? Because it can track specific trauma. It can track beliefs, emotions. It can even track, like, it knows the frequency of, like, let's say a healthy liver and a sluggish liver, a healthy cell and a healthy cell. It knows the energy of, like, here's the frequency for happiness. Here's the frequency for anxiety. They all have these ranges. So it knows all that stuff. And I think, to me, the deeper that I've gone, I've realized that every single thought that we have produces energy. Emotions that we feel produce energy. When we take action or we're decisive about it, it produces energy. So therefore, even if we don't even believe in energy at all, and you're like, let me just focus on it, let me feel it, it works because it still produces energy, right? So to me, it's like you don't have to believe in it, but a lot of our actions, a lot of the things that we do, even when people that are extremely skeptical, a lot of their day-to-day things, it produces energy. It's just that it produces energy that's disempowering to them, or it's not really serving them. But I believe everything in life, produces energy, right? So thoughts, focus, perceptions, like shape reality for sure.
Well, that makes me think about frequency then, of
Yeah.
course. There's like what's energy, but like it's a wave form, it's a wave of energy. It's in the field. There's nothing empty in this empty space. It's energy. And so there's a frequency. So what's your understanding about frequency and the power of it? And just sort of like, I mean, I think about the world we live in. I was talking about EMFs and just
Oh.
the energy and also then all the things that we can do to raise that.
If I look at the world that we live in right now, as we're talking, you may have thousands of radio waves. You can't see them, but they're right here. Like,
Oh yeah, my
when
phone's here, my computer's here, the lights are here, the
you've got
Wi-Fi.
you got the Wi-Fi. My LED wall has EMFs. You probably microwave radio signals, and what people don't talk about a lot is geopathic stress, right? Is the energy that the Earth emits, and that's why, and they can measure it, and that's why sometimes like people like they're in a place to where they just feel off with the location wise. They're like they just don't like it because that could either be conducive to your energy or non-conducive. And that's why in Vedic astrology, you talk about ley lines, and they're like, hey, like this is where you're, this is conducive to your energy at this point in your life, and then this point in your life, you kind of this is going to be it, right? But to me, there's so many different things that are coming at us. Like I would say in the tens of thousands, and it's not even including people, right? And when you walk in the mall, like we all have, like I call it auric field, researchers, scientists call it the bioenergetic field, but either way, it's an energetic bubble. And then
Yeah.
you're walking in the mall, everybody's bubbles interacting with everyone's bubbles, and then and there's an energetic exchange. So to me, we're always swimming entangled with energy one way or another. That's why it's super important to like have practices like to keep our center and our status quo the same, so we're not that affected by it, or we're not too entangled, or if we are, we can detangle, because that's the biggest thing is when you're entangled that you're not thinking straight, you're not feeling straight, right? There's confusion, you can't, there's lack of clarity. And to me it's like there is a power in knowing who you are and what your energy is, you know your authentic energy, independent of all of that stuff.
What can we do to protect it? What can we do to make sure that our field stays clean? What can we do to protect ourselves frequency wise?
I geek out, like I was on a period, we just removed it because it was like, so I like sacred geometry. I'm a big fan of crystals. I'm a big fan of gadgets. We try them out, like things that are like EMF protection. We try all these things out just to make sure to see what works and what doesn't. But I'm also a big fan of things that are sustainable. Right? And the way I look at it is we were created with such a magnificent self-healing mechanism, our bodies, right? You get a wound, your body repairs it. If you have like, if you're sick, like immunity kicks in, like, your body is so intricate along with everything in nature. So to me, like the way it's baked in is when we have these self-care practices that we do, right, it actually raises our vibration, right? To where for some people, for my wife, for example, she likes to journal, right? She wakes up in the morning, it's journal, it's moving her body, it's being alone, right? For her, because journaling for her, like if there's energy that's trapped, like she's journaling, it goes from her heart to her hand, pen and paper, and it's now it's in the journal. So it's that release. Her movement of body, like working out, dancing, or yoga, it releases that excess energy for her. And then being by yourself also does that because you're not taking on other people's energy. So for me, there's those practices, and then there's like going out in nature, like, you're painting, you're writing a song, you're out with friends, you're with your pets, like, you're serving people, doing your purpose work. I mean, there's different things that we do that when we do them, it kind of clears our energy and raises our vibration. And for me, I'm more of the, I'm more of this thought pattern of like, people just need to do that and not guilt themselves for it. So you have to have that in their day, not just when they've earned it, but literally like bake it in, because that fuels them. And the harder the day is, the more of that they actually do.
Speak to that. I mean, I've heard before, there's like a quote somewhere that I heard a long time ago. It was like, when I don't have time to pray, I pray twice as long, or something like that. What do you recommend? How do you cultivate that, and what's the discipline? How do you build that discipline in?
So to me, it's a mindset shift, because a lot of times we're trained no pain, no gain, right? Or if you grew up in a household like I did, like my mom's like do it all fixer and like do it for everybody until she was empty and like and lacked fuel, and she got praised for that. Like, wow, you did amazing. You helped, you help, fix this in our family. You help this and that, but to her expense. So to me, there's the entanglement of an identity of like, wow, in order to receive that love and connection and praise, I have to fix, but that means I also have to be drained, because that's how they know that I actually did it. So I think there's this correlation that's improperly built of like, either I've got to be super, super tired, and that's how, I know that I'm working hard. They know that I'm working hard. They know that I'm doing it. Or I got to be strong individual, strong man, strong woman, to where like, if I do self-care, then I'm weak, then I am, then I'm selfish and I'm taking time for myself, because I should be doing it for my kids and for everybody else. But if I do it for me, then like I'm selfish, right? Or the whole thing of like, no pain, no gain. So to me, it's a mindset shift, thinking of like, hey, if you're the kind of person that loves to help people, then the more self-care you do, the more people you can actually help, because you never actually run out of energy. You're refueling the entire time. So there's no dips. You don't get tired. There's no break. There's no burnout. It's sustainable. Right. And I think it's the reframe of like, whatever it is that you want, you can get it, but you've got to do the self-care, because self-care is not optional. To me, it's how you fuel your body and your soul. Therefore, the harder you go, the more you have to do. The harder it is, the more you have to do. And you're going to realize that it's actually, you're not losing what you want. You actually get more of it.
There's one sort of thought that has come to mind many times to me over the last good few months, and it actually for even longer than that. It's honestly since I started the podcast. I remember I had a day where I did like 3 podcasts, and they were all like, very intelligent human beings, and they were in person. They were like 2 hours long each, and I got done, and I was like high. I had so much energy. I didn't know what to do with myself. It was the moment that I had an epiphany that like, what's meant for you gives you energy, and what's not meant for you drains you. And I have to say that's been very true for my life. Everything that I'm like, I really love, and I have almost endless energy for it, versus something that isn't. It's like it could be a quarter of the time or less, and I find myself to be so drained. Why does that happen?
Those are clues, right? The things like when I'm looking at somebody's life and they're coming to me, the first thing that I look for are energetic drains and blocks. And the second thing is, people typically have an attachment to them. But if you look at your life, it's typically like, 2, maybe 3 people that when you talk to them, they really drain you, or situations that when you're there, they really drag your energy. And a lot of it is like canvassing them and being like, okay, these 5% of the people, the places, the thoughts I visit, the things I read, the things I lend my consciousness to drain me. I'm actually tired. I actually, feel overwhelmed. I actually don't like who I am, or I'm just different afterwards. And then there's people here that refuel me, that charge me up, that lift me up. But what I end up seeing happening is these things here to me are, and you don't have to get it perfect. It's not like you're going to have to give all this up. To me, it's just about ratios. If you can get this to where it's majority and this is the minority, that's fine. I mean, it's life. It's not going to be perfect, right? But to me, it's people are typically, when they see this, they're like, shoot, like they feel guilty going all in on what's good, and they feel bad about removing and lessening the things that are draining them. So to me, it's like there's the mental rules that prevent them from being like, shit, let me do more of what's good for me and less of what's not, because they're like, they're like, what kind of person am I going to be if I do that? Right. But to me, those are clues as to like what's given to us so we can actually be happy and be optimized. Right. To me, that doesn't lie. It's like these things that make you happy. I'm like, put it in your day. Can you do it, morning? Can you do it night? Can you do it more often throughout the day? Can you, and if the week gets harder, can you do an entire day just doing that if you need to? Right? Can we kind of like change the way we look at things to where instead of us always running on empty, can we like optimize for feeling good, and that becomes the norm,
Yeah.
right? And that was a big one I had to learn, because to me, I was always like adrenaline, things had to hit rock bottom, and I'd fix it. I was like, here, I love that challenge. So to me, I'm like, shoot, what's the challenge when things are always good, right? Where's that contrast, right? And I had to be creative and be like, maybe I should have bigger goals. Maybe I should just have this goal and have a shorter timeline or a deadline for it. And that's where I'm going to get my excitement. Maybe I should focus on doing the impossible, hasn't been done yet. And I'll take that on. So to me, I've had to rewire how I look for the adrenaline and excitement to something that's actually empowering.
What does the dynamic of wanting something do to the energy of the
Hmm.
manifesting of it?
What I've realized is every time I wanted something, it puts me in a humanistic vibration. And in that humanistic vibration, it's lower. So the way I look at it, low vibration here, if you're in the lower vibration, manifesting is slow, because you're in a frequency to where you have to generate a lot of energy just to manifest. I
It's
think
like
about,
linear. I think about like human like is like this linear, like I go do this and then I get that. As opposed to like more of like a 5D reality where everything
oh
is
yeah,
stacked on top of each other as a potential reality right now. And you
yeah,
just have to get aligned, right?
absolutely. And what I've noticed, when you go on a higher vibration, you'd be surprised. Like, I'm not making it up. Like, you're thinking about it, it shows up. And a lot of times you're in that vibration before you can even think about wanting it. It shows up, and you're like you said a while ago, I couldn't have even planned this. Right. So I like the vibrational based living, because to me, when you're there, things manifest before you can even think about manifest, or because things are given to you before you can even need it. Right.
Yeah.
And to me, when I'm wanting something and when I'm too attached, it puts me in a lower frequency, because I'm like desperation. I want it. I need it to happen now. And I'm like, I'm very human at that point. It's putting me in this lower vibration. And every time I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna let that go. I'm gonna walk away from that. I'm gonna focus on something that excites me and all those different things. I'm releasing my attachment for that to happen. It shows up because I surrendered. And when you surrender the need to control things, it elevates your vibration. And in that higher vibration, to me, things are sped up. Like you said, 5D reality is just like it to me, it's the fastest way. So it's counterintuitive, because from someone like me who's super logical, I'm like, I just want to control it. And if I can't control it, it's never gonna happen.
And I'll work harder and that'll help me get it because that's just the way you do it. Like that makes sense.
Yeah, but to me, it's like once I figured out the whole, let me let go, let me surrender, let me focus on something else that can get me in higher vibration, it always shows up. It always, and to me, I'm surprised to where that is the hack. Surrender,
Yeah.
the path to surrender and letting go is part of it's part of the hack of like getting it faster, to be honest.
Yeah. I found that too. And like you think about something, but then let it go. It's like you send the signal, but
Yep.
then you create no blockage by sort of that lack mentality, which essentially is what is implying if you want something, you're like, I don't have it. And then just comes at you. And it's like very fun when you have those kinds of days or spans of time where it's just coming at you so fast.
You forget
I,
about it. And that's and
yeah.
my wife and I figured this out. It's like we try our best to get in a high vibration, like Sedona, or or just do things to get us in a very high vibration. And that high vibration, we're just making the moves,
Yeah.
the big moves that there's no going back,
Yeah.
planting the seeds, and then we forget about it. We go by our day, and you never know what day, what week is gonna drop, and it's all gonna come in, and you're like, wow, that really worked, you
Well,
know?
I guess like they would say, you're actually living in the reality that you have it. That's why you don't think about it anymore because it's there. There's nothing to worry about anymore. I've always found that the more fun I plan for myself, like we're not talking about like to go get it. We're not talking about like if I just strategically go, I'm going to have this meeting and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to, no, not like that. Like I'm going to plan vacation. I'm going to go out to dinner and then I'm going to go play golf and then I'm going to talk to my friend and then I'm going to get an Akashic reading and then when I, like if I just still plan a bunch of fun for myself, it feels like that helps me get into the energetic state
Oh, yeah.
that attunes me to more of what I want, what more of my highest potential timeline is for the things that I want.
Yeah, and to me, it's not what's taught out there, but that's the reality. To me, it is actually you just laid it out there to make it easy for people to understand. Manifestation is like you're having fun, you're doing these things that you set your soul on fire, that elevate your vibration, and in that space, you're like intention here, like and that's it. And to me, it's the name of the game is after that, can you get used to maintaining this vibration? Because the more you maintain it, the faster that it comes. But I feel people are sometimes wired for you got to do it like the unattainable ones, right? You got to be able to meditate for 3 to 4 hours a day for 30 years straight. You got to have zero thoughts. It has to be perfect. And to me, it's this perfectionism of it has to look a certain, and I'm sure for some people that works. And to me, I'm like, more power to you. If that's what you've tried that works for you and you found your element, amazing. But to me, it's all about people individually finding what works for them
Totally.
and then going all in on that, regardless of what other people say. It's just like, here's what works for me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do this and unapologetically go for it because that's what works for you.
I love that. I guess I've called that like a little bit of maybe like it's almost like having a menu of mindful modalities. And you just kind of go like, I don't know. And sometimes I need more of one and less of another. And you kind of just skip around and you go, these are the things that work for me. And I don't need this right now. And I do need that. And it's like one of the things for me that I've never really done that much of is meditating. It just,
Yeah,
I mean,
same here.
unless you want to give me a task of like go talk to a bunch of ascended masters. Like I remember I went to Egypt not this December, the December before with Robert Edward Grant and a huge group of people, and we were in the King's Chamber for hours. And that's
Wow.
great and all. And it's amazing. It's a great experience. But there's a lot of people that get very into that energy and like they spend a lot of time, in the energy of it and doing things. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, kind of hot, kind of bored. And then
Correct.
I'm like, finally, I was like, all right, I'll just like tap in and I'll just like, talk to the ascended masters for a second. I asked like, Jesus, Isis, like I'm just asking like questions. And so I probably did that, or I did that for like, I don't know, like 10 minutes, and it's not very long, 5 minutes even. And I get quick answers. And that's one of the things that I feel like if the answer comes, it's real. If you have to labor for it or try, it's not real. Anyway, so we get done and they're like, did, anything come through? I'm like, no. And then we were going through it in a group and I was like, well, and then at the end I did this. And it's like, I just am not programmed to be one of those people that just sits there and just like for hours and hours, like,
Right. People meditate because what? They either want clarity, they want to feel good, they want to release things, they want to tap into an altered state of consciousness, and so on and so forth. So to me,
mhm.
I've seen people they do that when they garden, or when they're working out, or when they're cooking, when they're cleaning, when they're driving, when they're running, when they're, conversing with loved ones. That all happens. It doesn't have to look a certain way. So I'm more of like, like if you can do and get messages in 10 minutes versus someone that has to do plant medicine and do it for a day and they purge in the middle and it's like all that and you can't even do it in between business meetings or when you're in a plane when you're like, I want to get an answer, I got to go an entire day. No, I think you found something that's efficient for you that works. And to me, that's all it is. If you're going to ask me, hey, do you want to spend 6 hours just to get this answer and you got it in 10 minutes, I'm like, 10 minutes every day, because I feel like although it's fun sometimes escape in the ethers and play there, I'm like, that's not the goal. That's where we come from. So
Yeah.
if I came from there and I'm supposed to be here to make a difference, to learn things, to explore, to have fun, then it would make sense that I would go in there to check every once in a while. But I'm on earth here living and enjoying and doing what I'm supposed to do. here and I'm not trying to escape there, right? So to
Mhm.
me, I've always been more of like, get it there when you need to, right? Or kind of integrate it a little bit, but then I'm also here in the real world. And I think that's the yin and the yang, the being able to fly, but you're also grounded, and then
Yeah.
knowing the difference of when to do both, right?
I was thinking about the beginning, you were talking about like obviously being the activator. And when you were describing that, it really almost just sounded, and I'm curious what you're doing, what you're identifying, what you're seeing, what your gifts that you've realized your gifts are. But I got the feeling like you're a mirror for them. Like your activation is essentially being the mirror. So I'm wondering like what it is that you actually do. Are you telling them something? Are you visualizing energy? Are you working with the chakras? Like
Sure.
what's actually happening? Because that's kind of what came to mind. It just,
Yeah.
seemed like you were just showing them somehow.
Yeah, and actually, it's a really good way of looking at it. When I started doing it, I didn't know I was doing it. I was completely unconscious because I feel like some gifts you have it to where when you have your gift, you you might not even know it
Yeah.
exists,
It's
but
just you.
your energy field is doing the work. So when someone's in your energy field, they're being worked on, and you have no idea. You're like
Oh,
looking around, like scrolling on social media. You don't know what's going on. So to me, at the very beginning, I didn't know what was going on. I just thought like, what's going on? What's happening, right? But after that, I set an intention, and I was on a vortex, like in Sedona, and I was like, if I'm given this gift, I want to be able to use it on demand. I want to know how to use it, how it works, right? And it wasn't overnight. It was like a few more years of like, getting images of sacred geometry in my sleep and all these different things that came to me. And nowadays when I'm doing my activations, it's like when I see people, it's almost like I see their higher self. I see them unblocked. I see what they could be. And maybe there's something to it to where as I'm seeing that, I'm pulling in that energy. And when they're with me, I mirror it to them and maybe they remember it. Maybe that's what's happening in the highest levels. But I'm a little bit more methodical about it. So when I'm working with people, I'm like using certain sacred geometries that are given in sleep form or, to come to me throughout the day. And what I'm doing is I'm working on the DNA level, one, to remove any kind of blocks that's preventing them from accessing their spiritual gift. But more importantly, if you look at the cells in the DNA, I mean, scientists say like what, 95 or 90, 97% or however, majority of the DNA is junk DNA. And I don't believe it's junk at all. I
no,
feel like
no.
there's
We're
information.
95% dormant is what we are.
Exactly. And to me, it's like if you look at the stories that they had in history of all these people doing all these amazing things back in the day, whether how long they lived or their abilities and all those different things. To me, the way I look at it is the DNA was super intact the way it was supposed to be back then. And with civilization progressing and everything that we talked about, external factors, what we eat, programming, all those different things, suppression of knowledge and wisdom over time, what was active is consciously being forced to be dormant, and it becomes dormant until it's awakened. But to me, the awakening phase is funny because I do it actively in people, but I've seen it happen naturally as well. Like, for example, when the pandemic hit, like so many people who are gifted just woke up, right? And the reason why they woke up is because there was so much darkness in the world and their gift was needed. So
Wow.
whether they liked it or not, whether they were prepared for it or not, they woke up and it turned out a sensitivity, empathic. They were feeling stuff, but a lot of people woke up not by choice, but because it was time. So at times it happens when there's something like that worldwide that happens. Sometimes it happens when someone experiences a loss, like in any like near death. You can see stories of near death experience. Next thing you know, they're a genius or they can do all these different things. So I think sometimes like intense experiences like near death, heartbreak, loss, those things that kind of like kind of like reset you from a bit. It kind of brings it out. Sometimes also when you intend it, when you go on a journey of like, hey, let me find myself, go on a spiritual journey, then the intentionality of it happens. Sacred places like Egypt, those sites can also activate it. And at times you don't even choose it. When your soul knows that you need to, it just drops it in you with no heads up. And all of a sudden, people I've seen go from not having a gift to next thing you know, oh my gosh, what is going on? This is crazy. Right. So to me, there's like different ways why it gets activated. My way is more of like, let me see, remove the blocks. Let me get your DNA to be able to handle that on an energetic level so that you're not shoving it under the rug or suppressing it. You're actually using it the way it's supposed to be used.
Have you used plant medicine?
I have a lot of friends that lead a lot of these ceremonies and stuff. To me, ever since I stumbled on energy healing, is like everything that they've described is exactly my life. What they see, what they feel, all those different things. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is my life 24/7. So to me,
You're like, basically, I'm on drugs every day.
and here's the, yeah, exactly. And here's the thing is like when people that have come to me that have done plant medicine and I do energy work on them, like they trip and they're like for like an hour or two and I'm
Wow.
and they go to that space
Sure.
and they're like, did you put anything in my tea? What was it in that rice? With this, I was like, there's nothing. Energy's energy. And if you know how to get there, then you can revisit there. But for me, I've just never been called. And to me, I thought of it more of as an
Number one thing that has to happen, you have to be
as be
called.
called. Everyone says you have to have the call, right? And the second thing I look at it is efficiency issues. To me, I'm
Oh,
like
like what you said with me, like 10 minutes gets your answer versus go throw up
exactly.
in the jungle for 3 days.
You're in the jungle 8 hours 3 days. There's purging, and I guess like to me, if that's what works for somebody and it's something that speaks to them, I'm all for it. But what I've noticed, and this is not representative of everybody, but what I've noticed is some of the folks that I've known that have done it, like they've like 30 times, 50 times, 200 times, and 4 years later they have the same problem. It's the same issue, and I'm like, is it healing or is it escaping? Because
Yeah.
me, like it's fine, but to me, it's like I'm just so used to, I guess, if I have an issue, I'm solving it deep, and and then I'm going to the root, and then I'm like, let's go on to the next. So to me, that's one of the things that, and I have met people that are like, a few very handful where they did it once, twice, 5 times. Every time they did it, they learned something, they applied it, and their
Mhm.
life is amazing. And they're not like every week I must do it, right? So that I'm like, there's some people that I've seen that's how I would do it if I ever did it. But to me, I've seen mostly the majority is just kind of like, for fun. To where to me, I'm like, I'm having fun and like, 10
Oh, that
minutes.
becomes the new codependency. The new dependency is on they're like, oh, they like it's the spiritual bypassing or whatever you want to call it. It's just, sort of like their new guise for I'm healed is I'm doing healing work when really you're just there doing, you're just there. You're not really actually healing. I would say my experience has been more like what you would hope it would be like. I've done one true ayahuasca journey and one true psilocybin journey, got humongous messages from them. And it takes years. That's the thing. It's like, if this becomes your like multiple times a year kind of thing that you do, like, I mean, man, I integrated that information probably still, honestly, because when they're like really your root issue, when they're like a root fundamental belief that you have that holds you back, it's not like you just, they take time. So those have been years. It's been almost 5 years since ayahuasca and 3 years since the psilocybin journey. So
I've been in that phase of like, let's bypass because it's too painful. And like, you've been through too much pain to where you just want to have fun and get it. But to me, as it's progressed, I'm like, really got to do the work. Like, especially when
right, right.
after having kids, I'm really have to do the work. But the way I think you're describing it and, just the way you're like, you're talking about it, like to me, that's how, if I did it, that's how I would do it. It's like, how do you go deep with it? And it does take a while because when you go that high, you have to integrate all of that.
The psilocybin, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you were talking about DNA and upgrading, like what I felt in that experience was that I was like, basically it started and I took 5 grams. So I took a really pretty big dose and I was so far gone that I was like, every question had an answer basically almost simultaneously. Like I could barely keep up even in that space altered. And I was like, overwhelmed. I was like, oh my God, this is so much information. I was like, how am I going to get this back to the humans? And then they were like, it's okay, you don't have to. And then when I like opened my eyes for the first time after maybe an hour and a half or so, I realized I was like, oh my God, being human is a break from this. And this is why we can't take all the information in because we would short circuit. Like you put me in that state for very long and I'm like, goodbye. I can't do it. This is all way too much information. So that's why when you said DNA, that it's immediately brought me back to that experience on psilocybin, where it's like of slowly evolving and growing. And, it leads me to a big question, because it's not easy. Like I found myself when I first started on the spiritual journey a long time ago, it was like, it almost felt more hard than anything. It was like overwhelming. It was sad. There was, changes, and I questioned it. I was like, why am I doing this? It was like a lot easier actually before in oblivious land. But yet, usually when you get on this path, you're just on it and there's no way you're getting off of it. And so why, for those out there that are still in this conversation and they're here for a reason still, then why keep doing the work, or why even step into the work?
To me, like what you described, that's who we are. That's our nature. That's where we come from. And you're right. We're coming in here, we're taking a break from all that stuff. And a lot of times people that stay in that place, they kind of lose themselves in a bit. They're like, because it's like, whoa, this is just, and you can kind of, you see them, they're like, they float on earth. I look at it as light and love, right? To where, my wife says, light, information, wisdom is light, and love is the lubricant of light. So you see a lot of people out there that they absorb so much information. And even though it's true, okay, if they don't have any love in their hearts, they implode. Right? They implode. They're like hiding. They're like, they can't handle it. They have to drink because it's too much. Mm-hmm. And to me, and I used to, in like 15 years ago, that was me. That was me going down, the route of like gathering information. And even though they're all true, it gets you to a place of like, how can I deal with all this stuff? Right. Yeah. But when you develop the love, you can actually deal with way more light and know what to do with it. So I think that's the first thing, is like, the more you go all in on the love aspect, the more light you can house, you can handle without imploding as a human being.
Wow. We got to go into love though, because that's too abstract right now.
I know. And I fought it so many times because my wife, they studied her in Norway because they had these machines that are biofeedback. She could do what the machines could do in half the time. There was a gal that was Lithuanian that came there and she was hooked up to the machine. She was talking to my wife, and my wife didn't speak Lithuanian. So it was translated. She had some sort of heart problem. And she wanted to figure out what it is. And the machine could detect psychosomatic stuff, which is what my wife worked on, to where if any physical illness comes from the mind or energy or the body, psychosomatic. Mm-hmm. So my wife was tuning in, right? And the people in the machine couldn't get anywhere. So they brought her in and they were studying it. And then they were like, what's your history? What's your background? And she was like, trigger warning. Like, she was when she was younger, she was I guess brutally raped in the woods. And you would think that that's where the trauma is. That's why her heart.
That seems obvious.
You're like, oh, big trauma. That's what's affecting your heart. No big deal. But the machine was like, that's not it. Right. So my wife was like, So my wife tuned in. And intuitively was like, what's going on with your mom? And then she started bawling. And apparently her mom is terminally ill in her deathbed. And her mom is her only form of unconditional love. So when she found out her mom was dying, her heart was trying to time it so that she would die with her mom unconsciously. Yeah. And my wife was like, helped her release it. And then her heart, several months later, her heart's fine. But think about that. That's how powerful we are as manifestors. We love somebody. We're about to lose them. We're manifesting our physical body unconsciously or consciously to degrade so that we don't have to lose our loved ones, like in a way, right? So when I saw that, I'm like, wow, we really
are. Be without love. Like if you're saying love is the lubricant and you don't have any more, guess what? No lubricant, no worky.
The doctors and all the researchers there were like asking my wife, how did you do it? What's this? Because they want the steps, right? What's the steps? What did you do? Right. And my wife was like, love. She's like, I don't know. When I'm there, I'm just love them unconditionally. And I see them as whole. And it's just a lot of love pouring through. And that's all. And everything just comes to her. And I was like, wow, that's the power of love. So to me, because I thought at the beginning, I'm like, this is kind of corny, this is like Valentine's Day love quotes. I'm not really, I'm like, I'm more of like practical, kind of like, very, very like logical. So to me, I've never really been a big believer or thought that that was the key till I started seeing her do that with so many things to where the underlying energy itself causes things to heal sometimes without even words. And now I'm like, that's next level stuff. And I got to learn that. Right. But that's what sold me was just seeing her fully embody that. And that was, I think when people get together, friends, marriages, partners, there's always like a gift. And I think her gift for me was she comes from just unconditional love frequency. And I didn't know what it was till I experienced it. And now over time, I've had a little bit of a better context around it. It's a frequency. To me, love is a specific frequency, and it's not and it's one to where when you experience it, you almost feel like whole. It's not like giddy. It's like it's wholeness, it's calm, it's peace, it's purpose. It's like you have everything you need. And to me, that's probably closer to the frequency of the highest that high form of unconditional love than what we in humans think love should be.
I think God is a frequency. I think that's why you can touch it. It's
Yeah.
so high, and you might have moments. If you get once in your life, I think that's actually a blessing. I felt that one time, and it was a total, I don't know how long I was transported for, but the overwhelming feeling was just that it was like literally this huge, just all love. Then the mind goes, how can I be loved through, like, in spite of all this? And then the next message was, there's no need for forgiveness because there was never even a judgment in the first place. That's love. No judgment even for forgiveness. Like, screw all the religions of like forgive you. In love, there isn't even a judgment, which requires then no forgiveness.
Absolutely agree with that. And to me, it's like one of the things I tried earlier on. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It was like Ho'oponopono. Have you heard of it?
I've heard
I'm
of that. Yeah.
sorry. I forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I was in Sedona and I was trying it for a few weeks. And then the message came loud and clear. I was like, just say I love you, I love me, I love all. Because this, like, please forgive me, I'm sorry, right? This frequency isn't high vibrational. Like, why
Mm.
why embed that, like, unworthiness, like this for sorry, and this you're in this space. It's just like I love you, I love me, I love all. I'm like, whoa, that's a shift. Because even that, I'm like, that's crazy. I'm like, and I say the same thing about forgiveness as to where it's like an energy that stays in a specific spectrum. And I tell people all the time, if someone has wronged you, you don't have to forgive them. You simply have to release that energy from your heart, releasing so it doesn't bother you anymore. And if you feel like forgiving them down the road, it's optional.
Yeah,
But the
it's
thing,
not it's not like a horrible emotion. As we're not talking about, shame or envy or
yeah,
any, it's like forgiveness is pretty good, but
yeah. If
um
you get to there, sure, but don't think you have to forgive somebody
yeah,
for you to move on. To me, the reason why you haven't moved on is because their effect, their energy is in your heart, it's in here. And if
yeah,
you release that, then forgive them later if you feel like it. But those are two separate things.
right. Or maybe take it another step and have gratitude. I think gratitude is another leap better, right? Instead of
Exactly.
forgiving them for what they did, thank them for showing you something. Thank them for the growth that you just earned from that. Like, thank you for that experience. Like, I wouldn't be who I am today without it. Like, there's ways to evolve it. Look, forgiveness is not the
Non-forgiveness.
worst thing in the world, but
Just forgive them and forget, let go. And I'm like, to me, it's like it's just because it's common wisdom passed in the ages doesn't mean it's the ultimate step. I think it is a step, but is it the ultimate step? No. And to answer your question about why am I doing this?
yeah,
I
exactly.
why? So to me, I just like, gosh, at the very beginning, it was all because I was experiencing so much pain and I just wanted to end, that cycle of pain. And I saw energy as a way of doing that. In my mind, I was like, gosh, if I can take decades worth of healing and I can do it in a year, then sign me up for the intensity, sign me up for the speed. Like, if
Oh my
that's
God, we're the
they gotta,
same. I used to drive race cars, right? So it took me till I retired till I realized that I like to do everything fast. If we can do something really quick and I can go to the jungle and learn my lesson, then great. I don't have to go spend the next 10 years in therapy. Let's do it.
and that's the thing. And my belief on that as well is that it's tough when your mind is operating this fast everything's slow, right? Everything.
Yeah.
And that to me is like I've teetered around like I need to have more patience. And then I also remember people that are potent, and I see society and humanity lift up because they don't dim their potency or their light. They're just like, I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna help you guys raise up. And I've seen that as well. So I teeter between like, do I really need patience, or do I need to be even more grounded and comfortable in my potency and go even faster?
Now I'm just curious where you think, because I'm curious about this too. I've like, a few good friends that recognize it. One in particular that pointed it out, Dave Asprey's like, oh my God. And do you know who Dave Asprey is? The
Yeah.
biohacker guy? Yeah. He's fantastic, but he's like super, very, very spiritual and very smart. And he's told me a long time ago, he's like, I like you because your mind is fast like mine. And I'm like, And he kind of pointed that out to me for the first time. And I'm like, where does that come from? Like, what does that mean? If you have the same, like, what have you figured out? I'm very curious about
Ready?
this. Yeah.
I think you have Akashic records as a gift.
Oh.
Because people that have Akashic records as a gift, think about it. Like, the way I look at it is Akashic records is like a big giant library of all the informations and the secrets of the world and the universe. And to me, when people have Akashic record as a gift, things are just flowing. Like they are used to like so much information in and out, and their processing is a lot faster. Therefore, they look at the world extremely, they can look at it as the whole, they can see systems and solutions come in, and they're just like, it's just like information highway so much to where you're you're fast because that's how you're processing things with that gift. You kind of like, it pains you to be slow. It's like, it's almost like it's all or nothing. You're
Oh my God, you should see me. I mean, like literally driving down the road is the biggest pain in the ass in my world. But also just even thinking, like it comes in very simple forms, like, oh, are you thirsty? And people are like, I'm okay. And I'm like, how can it possibly take you that long to answer a simple question? Like, it comes in all forms, but even just comprehending concepts, whether it's, work issues or organization stuff, it's like, oh, it just seems like, I feel like
you
we're similar in our brains. I feel like I'm pretty logical too.
yeah.
And it's like, oh, this seems so simple. And a lot of times I say things that people are thinking, I'm like, it's because it's that obvious, right? But it's not to everybody.
Yeah, and I think you also do a lot of parallel processing at the same time. At the same
Mhm.
time, whereas like,
Hmm.
you gotta answer. And
Mhm.
I think, and that's the biggest thing, and that's been one of the things that I've had to notice and kind of have, have grant grace on people. Like, yeah, they're not as fast as me, but at the same time, I'm gonna keep my pace, and I'm gonna try to, especially if I'm like for business stuff, and I'm just gonna surround myself with people who are either as fast as me or who can handle that speed. That's the
Yeah.
biggest one. Because the biggest, what I've seen, especially when you're running in a certain direction and you have people around you, it's other people, either they fuel you up, they can help ground you, they can make you laugh, they can balance these things, all those different things. But to me, the worst thing is to slow you down.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, you can't really choose that in certain areas, but for me, at
Yeah.
least for business, I try to, people around me can handle the velocity, because
Yeah.
otherwise it will drive them crazy.
Yeah. I wonder if Elon's like that. Have you ever heard Elon
Oh,
Musk? Like, he's
I,
got to be. Like, actually,
I,
he's probably like a full on.
I think he's like, com- personally, he's figured out how to do it, how to hone it, how to build his entire infrastructure to support it to where it's like, it's got to be pretty like because I'm like 17, 18 hour days, work, and like just like building stuff and all those different things, and he's doing it on a whole nother level of like, let me break this industry and get it, here, and then do it in other industries while I'm doing this. And then you're like, where do you have the time? And to me, it's
Right.
got to be speed of thinking, right?
Mm.
Of like, you've got to be able to process at the speed of light to be able to make those decisions at the pace you're making them, at the levels that you're making them.
I mean, he's like sleeping at the White House, like on the couch, supposedly. Like, I mean, this is,
I believe
but
it.
there was a great story about him flying on the plane with a bunch of people from his company. I'm not being very specific because I don't know the exact details. I just remembered the general story. And there was an issue, and they said it would probably take 6 months to figure it out. And he had the pilot turn the plane around to head back to Silicon Valley or wherever they were. And they went and they had it figured out in 24 hours.
I mean, and that's to me, it's like when people are in lag time, they're like, "You've got it," and I think it's a gift. I think it's Akashic records, and I think it's one of the things where, um, when it's cultivated, like in the geniuses of our time, I think it moves civilization forward leaps and bounds. And I honestly think you have it. You have that processing Akashic ability. It's now like when you hone it and you kind of like you like like how do you say it? Like you protect it, you defend it, you hone it, you nurture it, you lean in, you practice it. It becomes like a superpower, right? To
Yeah.
where you're like whoa, like I think it gets higher and higher to where the solutions that you come up with and the speed in which they come, like they just gets faster and better to where you're like, I don't even know where I'm getting this, right?
Wow. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a lot of times where there's even, I mean, I think I find it the most common within like spirituality and ancient history and just the way that things have gone. It's like you hear like one or two things and you basically have an image of what actually happened or a feeling of like what you think happened, right? Because of
Yeah.
course, do we know for sure? You can be the most confident Akashic reader out there and, you believe in your skills, but you can't know 100% for sure. But there's still, it's like, things end up like all lining up and becoming very logical. It makes everything make sense. You're like, oh yeah, and I don't need that much information to achieve the picture, I guess.
I was gonna say that is like you probably see the whole picture. And I think when people throw things at you that are even a slight bit untrue, you'll know. You'll
Oh yeah, that's the
you're like,
worst. Like you're
nope,
so right.
nope, correct, nope. And it's like, and it happens so quickly to where you're just like, okay, this is how it works. And people are like,
Yeah.
what? Right. So that's one of the gifts of the Akashics is like you don't even have to get all the pieces. You might get one piece here, but then since you get this piece and this piece, you tap into the energy of it, and the
Yeah.
gift fills in the blank of every other thing. And the next thing you know, everything is filled, and you're like, yep, this is how it works.
That's how it feels. That's exactly how it feels. It all like the blank. It's like, oh, I don't know how all those pieces came
people
together, but
people will actually call you know it all as well. They're like you're know it all because I'm and to be honest, it's like because you're tapped into all that stuff.
I'm
You
going to
know,
tell my dad that because he tells me when after like two drinks, I have went to college, which I never did, and I become a know-it-all. But I'm like, Dad, actually, turns out. Anyway, that was a lot of selfish time. I appreciate that, but I'm just curious, and I'm guessing there's other people out there that have this sort of experience in life where, the speed at which you comprehend things is different. I wonder how much we're like getting back to ancient practices and ancient
mm,
abilities and I know we've been going on and on. I don't want to take too long, but I love talking about ancient history. And you mentioned Egypt, and that's absolutely my most fascinating area of the planet, as well as time and history. So, what kind of? I mean, Is this us getting back to cultivating, opening up this sort of this DNA sequencing that allows us to be able to do things like move megalithic stones again? I mean, did we lose something and are we gaining it back? And what do you like? Are you drawn to ancient history like that?
absolutely, like Egypt, like I mean, like thought, like the Emerald Tablet, like Isis. I mean, I like Hathor or something. To me, I'm like, um, I believe that there's so much richness of gifts, of wisdom, of knowledge there. And my personal belief is through time, like, it's almost like, how do I say this? So it's almost like people that knew the knowledge, knew the secret, knew the wisdom, they kind of like, I believe, hoarded it for themselves, right? And then the masses started like losing touch of that. Because part of creation as well, and manifesting realities is being able to siphon energy. If you think about it. The
Yeah.
way I look at it is the more energy that you have, the faster things the faster things you can create, right? And if you can divert mass consciousness into an ideology, then it will sustain itself, and you're not having to come up with energy. You're using people's energies to. So
Hmm.
I personally believe that over time we're designed to lose our powers, to lose our consciousness, to not think, to give up decision making and stuff, to where we're just lending consciousness and lending energy to something bigger that we don't understand that fuels someone else's agenda, right? My personal belief. And I feel like what's ended up happening is we're waking up. Like people are waking up to their power, to their abilities. And what's the cool thing about that is I think the waking up part is more powerful than the mass energy control manipulation part. Because if you
Why?
look at ascended masters that have come to this planet, like it took one ascended master to shine in their full light, and they're affecting billions of people even after they've left the planet. So if you think about it from an energetic perspective, if we're all connected, and you have one that shines really bright, that goes flies really high, everyone else who's connected has no other choice but to be lifted up, right? So
Sure.
I think one, yes, I think we're waking up for sure. I think, and you're starting to see it. I think they've had shows out there where they study people that have superhuman abilities, and they're starting to see it. And it's not it didn't disappear. It's just it never got attention.
Mm,
It's just never gone there. But they exist, right? And I think they're all over, the world in the millions to where people have it. We're awakening, and it's progressing more and more and more. It's just that it's not normalized, so it's not something that
yeah, I've got some sort of stories on the download that are like,
right.
under experiences people had and understandings that try to be hidden, but like, I mean, but it's also so overwhelming and scary because it's so different. And like,
Overwhelming.
go with that. And
They're afraid of being rejected. Some of the people that I met, that are the most brilliant scientists that like cure the craziest things on earth, that teach in universities. I do healings on them, and they tell me, please don't tell anybody I'm spiritual, because if they know that I believe in energy, that I do the work that you do and all those different things, I'll be discredited, right? So I feel like there's a lot in hiding because of afraid of that being judged, being looked at, being ostracized, right? And when people wake up, they wake other people up by this their energy. So what's
yeah,
happening right now is a
just
global,
proxy, just
yeah,
proxy.
ripple effect. People are waking up, and it's exciting because I feel like we are touching deep into our roots, and I think it's only a matter of time before it's becomes more normalized, the spiritual gifts that we have. And I think to me, Egypt is like a phenomenal source for people that are wanting to kind of like remember all that, because I think it's all about remembrance. I think we
Yeah,
just
getting a little activated.
we already have it. It's just that
Yeah.
we can't. It's dormant, right?
So, something that's so different from all of this stuff that has become something kind of new in my world has been politics.
Hmm.
And when I went to Egypt for the first time in February of 21 and went for over 2 weeks and went to many temples and some pyramid, there's mostly temples are the most interesting. And we went to Karnak, which I went to Karnak, and it was like, I immediately was like, this was the Washington, D.C. of ancient Egypt.
Wow.
I have been in DC. Went not last week, the week before, and the week before that for the inauguration and for hearings. Every time I see the obelisk, I feel, and when I was there, I'm like, I feel, and I'm like, feel like I'm in Karnak.
Yeah.
Like it's wild, and I feel so drawn. And I'm like, politics is like the app. I mean, there's a couple of things that people would never expect to be in my like in my field and in my like in interests at all. And one would 100% be politics. But I feel so drawn in such a unique way.
To me, I feel like people that have the Akashic records that can see the bigger picture, right? Then they're called to bigger stages, especially when you're bringing heart to it, right? So the probably reason why, you're like politics is like appealing to you is because you're like, I know how to fix this. I know how it goes. I know the systems. I know what's going on. I know cause and effect. I know probably why things didn't work out back in the day, in Egypt or whatever, and or in history. And I know what needs to happen. And that's why you're probably fascinated, because you're playing in a much bigger stage that affects much,
Mm.
global amount of people. It's my bet.
That would be an honor. I would not shy away. It would be an honor. I definitely feel like I was brought into this life this time around with a lot of confident inertia behind me of like, let's fucking go, you know?
And I
Which is
think
really
on
hard sometimes, but
it's hard with people like us. I even hesitate to say balance, because to me, balance is very different. I don't look at it as like, well, instead of don't be a 10. Instead of being a 10, you're like a 7 or 8. No, to me, it's like balance is you go all in on black, you go all in on white, and you have the combination. You never dim it. You feel like if you're doing all in, and if you want something to happen, then you're doing all in of what will create that as a happy medium. It's never like, let me just tone down a little bit.
Yeah. It's never actually, in fact, I believe that it's never one or it's never both. It's never a percentage of both. On a macro level, it is, right? Because you've gone 70% of your time you go all in on this, and 30% of your time you go all in on this. But in any one choice, like, you can either choose work or family, let's say, right? But you can't choose both at the same time. Their family's not coming to work with you. So you pick one or pick the other, and then you find your macro balance overall that works for you. And it's not 50-50. That's not balance. That's not the balance. It's what works for you.
Yeah. I don't think it's ever 50-50. And actually you pointed out a great point that I always talk about is like what's imbalanced on a micro level is completely balanced on a macro level. Because if you think about it, because it's for some people, they're like, sure, like you take the weekends off of like Saturday and Sunday and you're doing 5 days on, 2 days off, and you're like, that's balanced. And they look at somebody that's like, they're working 2 years straight, right? And they're like, oh, you're in balance. But what if they do 2 years straight and then they're like 60 days? Like, on a macro, I'm like, still there. It's just that it's just a different thing. And to me, the worst thing is like, all right, you're fully momentum. You're gearing up. Oh, it's the weekend. You just got to pump brakes because you got to relax. So all that momentum goes like this, right? And to me, the balance, you got to look at it. One, you're right. It's never going to be 50-50. And I think honestly, it's like I've never been able to see someone who's a high achiever, high performer really do 50-50. It really isn't. It's like it's more like when you're in flow and you're in go mode and you have that momentum, you ride that as much as you can. And then when it's done, that means to me, you're having to rest. And that's you honoring the cycles of momentum,
Not being in resistance. You're like, we're riding the wave and then we're down here. And then it's just like the non-resistant flow.
And there's a pattern in that I feel it's just like, there's a natural pattern in that if you follow that will bring the balance, but it's that there's the flow in that, I feel.
Yeah. I want to ask about your book. So your book is called Do This Before Bed, which I love because it's like my favorite time to say the prayers. That's when I praise at night before I go to sleep, and maybe half the time I fall asleep doing it. But I always start out with gratitude, and then I finish off with what I want because I know the universe is fully abundant and it can give us all of us whatever we want. So I'm curious how this came about and like what is the practice before bed?
So yeah, actually, I'm looking at it right now. So yeah, this book that I have, Do This Before Bed, to me, I was looking at my most viral Instagram posts, right? And it was all do this before bed. I didn't even know. So I was like, gosh, what if I write a book about do this before bed? Because people want to learn about it. So to me, all these practices that you can do right before bed. And the way I look at it is, to me, it's reverse. I'm more of I think nighttime routine's underrated. I think, it's super powerful because if I look at it, what you do before you go to bed, you have 6 to 8 hours of sleep time. So when I look at 6 to 8 hours of sleep time, to me, that can be energy healing. Your body's rejuvenating. That could be you learning in spirit school and you're learning lessons in your dream form. That can be you intentionally astral traveling, right? Or you can do so many different things. That can be you manifesting. That's 8 hours where your mind's not holding you back from doing, energy work. So to me, I'm like, where are you going to find 8 hours? You're not. So to me, I found that when we're doing these practices before bed of like you're doing gratitude or even release, like this for some people, I tell them like, hey, if there are people that you're connected to, like, some people fire ceremonies work really, really well for them. My wife, it works so good for her. You have all these things that you hold in your heart that affect you throughout the day, and you carry it with you. And when you go to sleep, you carry that with you. So what ends up happening now is instead of your body going to self-healing mode or your body, just learning something, now you're dealing with just this stuff from the day. And when you wake up, you're like, let's start it out. All you did was just burn that energy from that day before and didn't really get any traction. So for me, I'm like, I tell people if there's somebody that you talk to, mom, sister, coworker, that you had an argument with, or someone that's affecting your energy, if you think, or an email that you got, write their name down on paper, set an intention that you want to release that energy, burn the paper. And what ends up happening is it just burns the energetic connection between them and you, so that while you sleep, you're still not pulling that energy while you're
Mhm.
supposed to be resting. So to me, it's a way of transmuting energy, and it's a way of like, hey, can you make it to where when you're sleeping, you're just using that sleep for whatever you want, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's more productive instead of sort of like reactionary. It's proactive. It's moving forward. It's figuring things out. It's
Yeah, and a lot of stuff like too, like stuff like to me, I'm a big believer of like, okay, right before you go to sleep, imagine like a gold light coming down,
yeah.
right, following it all the way up. Set an intention that you're following up, and just kind of go to sleep in that space. And the next thing you know, you're more intentional about that sleep time. So a lot of it is just like this little 5 minute hacks of like, how do you release energy? How do you manifest? How do you have more, insight and creativity? How do you finance, like all these different things that I've tried over the years that I do before bed. And to me, I feel like it's just the best time to do it. I mean, have you ever heard of the hypnagogia state? Some of the most brilliant minds in the world did it to where, I forget who it was. I forget if it's Einstein, Confucius, Plato, a bunch of different ones, but there's one person as well to where they would hold a coin and they would hold it in their palm and they would try to fall asleep holding this coin. And then when the coin dropped, they would wake up and they would start writing because they're in that perfect state of like right there. And you have it. It's like in the morning when you're barely awake and you're like in this like conscious state, but you're high up there. It's like you're saying that's the best time to manifest. That's the best time to create. That's the best time to set intention. To me, it's like there's just so much opportunity around everything with sleep. Some people actually wake up between 3 to 5 a.m. Have you ever had like you just wake up with so much energy in the middle of the
Yeah, well,
night?
I'm 42, so I pee at that time. So when I
Right. But some people are like, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm waking up. And they look at time, oh, it's like 3 a.m. It's every night, right? It's because the energy is intense. But yeah, to me, it's like I just wanted something to where I can put all the tricks, the tips on things to do before bed that have helped me. And then I just wanted to, just wanted to share with more people.
one of the things I really think about a lot is like, how do you get someone to wake up that isn't ready to wake up? And I wonder, this is almost like a philosophizing kind of question, but it's like, I wonder which direction it comes at us, because it almost seems like you can't make someone wake up, right? You can't, it's almost like it calls them from a different direction and they're in it. And then you're just in it. That's where I was saying, like, why can't you get off the growth train and the evolve train? It's like, no, it came in from a different direction. This wasn't like I'm not like going, oh, I'm going to go do this. It's like, no, I don't know. Something's coming at me, and and we're on our way. And, I mean, all I can really ever hope with the show and with relationships that I have in these kinds of conversations, with people like you, is that, maybe some of this is new, but these seeds will be planted and grow into something. And the next time they hear it, or the next time some idea comes up around it, they're like, oh, and it's starting to blossom now. And, maybe we can't really make or like push anyone to get on the path. Maybe it's really just about, being a visit along the way.
Yeah. And honestly, you'd be surprised. Like for me, I've met so many people to where podcasts, listening to a podcast, listening to an interview, they've told me is like changed everything. It changes your entire trajectory because I think you're planting mental seeds, but you're also planting energetic seeds as well. And I think those seeds, when they're ready, they blossom. You just don't know the timing of it. So at times you look at someone, you don't think it landed, and then 2 months later, they're like, thank you so much. That was the best thing. So I think they also have their own cycles. But to me, I'm like, this is the best format, like, is reaching people because you're bridging the energy, you're bridging, with logical stuff, you're giving them more than just one thing to chew on. And I think it's like you do your part, the rest just like you beautifully like unfolds, you know?
Yeah. Well said. Good. I'm glad. That's a much better way to look at it. Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.